The Shadow Generations DLC is getting a lot of people excited to be a Sonic fan. In a few short years, the perception of the Sonic franchise has become a lot more positive due to the success of the movies and Sonic Frontiers. Even Sega is trying to be more positive about the Sonic franchise as a whole because the Shadow DLC is going back to some of the stages from Sonic 06. It's as if they're no longer afraid to go back and try to improve on some of the lowest points in the series. You know, they're like, hey, this existed, this happened, but let's try to improve it.
It's no use!
This more positive outlook on the past has gotten some people thinking back to the older Sonic games. I've seen some people on Twitter ask a very intriguing question. Why isn't Sonic Adventure 1 looked on as fondly as Super Mario 64 is? It's a very good question. Both games are the series' first attempt at a full 3D game, but we hear far more positive things about Mario 64 than Sonic Adventure, so I thought I'd do my best to answer this question. For full transparency, I will be playing a Dreamcast ROM of Sonic Adventure 1, not the DX version you can buy on Steam. I will also be playing a ROM of Mario 64, not the Switch version from Super Mario All-Stars. Before we play the games, I think we should look at the consoles they came out on. Mario 64 was released as one of two games when the Nintendo 64 was launched, and the other game was Pilot Wings 64. Odds are if a parent was buying their child an N64, they'd pick up the cool new Mario game. According to a quick Google search, Mario 64 sold over 11 million copies, and is the best-selling N64 game overall. Isn't that crazy? The best-selling game was just one of the launch titles. So what about Sonic Adventure? Well, the game released about a month after the Dreamcast came out, and only sold 2.5 million copies. Now, Sonic Adventure did get another version released on the GameCube called Sonic Adventure DX, the Director's Cut, and it sold about 1.6 million copies, but I'm unsure if this figure includes the Steam sales too. In total, that's about 4 million copies sold, and some people have only experienced the game through the DX version. However, I am exclusively talking about the original Dreamcast version, so we can already see a reason why people remember Mario 64 more fondly. It just sold better. Almost 3 times the amount that Sonic Adventure sold as a whole. More people played the game, so it was able to remain relevant for longer. The N64 was a far more popular console too. It sold over 32 million units compared to the Dreamcast's 9 million. Now, I don't want to delve into why the Dreamcast as a console wasn't as popular, mostly because I just don't care. But I just wanted to bring up raw numbers. I felt like being a stat cell to give us some concrete, physical evidence as to why Mario 64 is remembered more fondly. So with all that out of the way, let's look at the games themselves. Now, before I get into the gameplay, I want to bring up something that is just as important: the audio. I honestly think that the soundtrack of a game is extremely important.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
Mario 64 not only has an iconic soundtrack, but it's a great one too. So great that my first stream of the game got a revenue share claim from some company in the Netherlands because it's being used as a cover song. So thanks for that, YouTube. But back to the game. Yeah, Mario 64 OST, it's great. It sets up the atmosphere for each stage almost perfectly, and the castle theme is just so good. Not every track is a banger, but it's not trying to have an over-the-top rock and roll OST. It's more focused on setting a good tone more than anything, and I think it does that perfectly. The Sonic Adventure OST is all over the place though. I personally think Open Your Heart is a good song, and it somehow has not triggered a copyright claim on its stream, so it has that over Mario. Now, the individual level stage themes, they're alright. They're nothing too special or amazing, but they're fine. But the other songs are just not as good. They range from forgettable to annoying in my opinion, but maybe they annoy me so much because the audio mixing in Sonic Adventure is atrocious. Anytime a character like Tails walks on screen, their theme is playing way too loud compared to the character dialogue.
That was a test run using a new prototype propulsion system. It's got a few bugs to iron out.
Why not just use my plane, the Tornado?
Get out of my way!
No way!
Did you hear what I said? Ooh, I hate that Sonic. He always seems to get in my way.
I'll explain it to you one more time. The Industrial Revolution and the 19th Amendment is what led to the downfall of this country. My friend Froggy is telling me all about it. He is based in Red Pill.
I looked at the options menu, and from what I can tell, there is no way to adjust individual audio parts. I really take this for granted when I play other games. Now, obviously, one's taste in music is extremely subjective.
And I feel like your ability to deal with that and tolerate such ugly sounds is going to be deeply connected to whether or not this album actually even appeals to you. I'm feeling a strong 9 to a 10 on this thing. Hell yes to this album.
One person will say that they love this OST, another person will say that this OST is the worst thing ever made. So I'm not going to stay on this point for too much longer. But at the end of the day, Mario 64, its audio mixing is very well done. There are very few sound effects in this game that are way too loud or way too quiet. Sonic Adventure, on the other hand, it's all over the place. Some stuff is too loud, some stuff is too quiet, and overall, it just hurts the game as a whole.
Did you hear what I said?
No way!
Now, one thing that Sonic has over Mario is the story. Mario 64 only gives us the bare minimum for a story, and I put that in quotes, right? Peach wants to give Mario a cake, Bowser cake blocks Mario, Mario gets the Power Stars, gives Bowser his just desserts, saves Peach, gets his cake, and they all live happily ever after. It's not the grandest story we've ever seen, but it doesn't need to be. Mario 64 focuses 99% of its attention on the gameplay itself. The story is just there to give Mario an excuse to jump into the paintings. Sonic Adventure's story is actually pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. The protector of the Chaos Emeralds and the Chao gets awoken and is slowly getting more and more powerful as the game progresses. Sonic and his friends are trying their best to get as many emeralds as they can to prevent Chaos from reaching his final form, while Eggman waits for them to find the emeralds he needs. It's got a good cat and mouse aspect to it. The story reaches its climax when Chaos achieves its perfect form, and Sonic defeats it once and for all using his own super form. Now, all of that sounds great. I genuinely mean it when I say that the story is great on paper. The writers thought of a fantastic story, but they completely dropped the ball with how it's executed. While I was playing the game, I tried really hard not to judge the 3D models too harshly. This game came out in 1998, of course it's not going to look anywhere as good compared to today's standards. Even then, most people are sick of developers trying to make games that are just glorified 30-hour movies with no gameplay, so whatever to that point. But the cutscenes in Adventure 1, they are just not that good. They did not age well at all. Like I said, I won't be too harsh, but when the game relies on telling a story, I'd at least like to hear what's going on, right? Most of the plot is told through these cutscenes, but like I said earlier, half of the time I can barely hear what they're saying. My main point on this section is that one of the few things Sonic Adventure has over Mario 64 is wasted. The story can be the most amazing epic the world has ever seen, but if it's being told through a hedgehog that's tweaking on fentanyl, I can't take it too seriously. Also, everyone died when Chaos reached his perfect form. There is no way in hell they all escaped before Chaos flooded the city. But the game tries to make a non-existent crowd cheer for Sonic. I'm sorry, this is just so stupid.
Go Sonic! Yeah, Sonic!
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 Negative forces aren't the only way to empower the Chaos Emeralds. Our positive feelings toward each other can make them work.
These paper clips are absolutely perfect for tinkering with any machine I've come across. By the way, I've got a flashback. I actually died, like not long after you left my store. Anyways, I should be getting back to hell now.
But with all that being said, I think it's finally time to talk about the game part of these video games. When it comes to the gameplay, we can break this down into a few smaller points. So let's begin by discussing how the characters feel. If you're playing a 3D platformer, you hope that you'll be able to actually platform efficiently. Mario feels great. His moveset has just enough to feel fleshed out and damn near perfect. Every action he can do serves a purpose. Single, double, and triple jumps have all the different heights you need for different areas in the levels. His backflip can reach higher areas without needing to triple jump, but has a very specific angle so it can only be used in a limited way, which is fine. His long jump is a great way to build up speed very quickly.
Foreshadowing as a narrative device.
And his side flip is really satisfying to pull off. Almost everything Mario can do feels amazing and well polished. Keyword being almost. The wing cap just does not feel good to play with. It feels very awkward to control. I understand it's like this because it needs to have limits. If you could just put this on and fly around the entire level without limits, it would be broken. Thankfully, it's been used sparingly, but anytime I had to put it on, I just didn't enjoy it. Overall, Mario feels great. Very rarely did I ever feel like the game screwed me over when I attempted to do an action. If I fell off a ledge, I probably tried to run too fast. If I missed a jump, well, maybe I should have tried a side flip or a long jump instead. Calculate that shit better. Now, it's difficult to talk about Sonic's moveset because the game isn't just Sonic. You play as Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, Amy, Gamma, and Big. The first four have a very similar moveset. They can all use their basic jump attack to hit enemies and have another attack tied to the action button. Gamma uses his gun throughout the stages, and Big, well, we'll talk more about Big later. The devs went in the opposite direction from Mario 64. Rather than have one character with a lot of tools, they made 6 different characters with a few unique traits sprinkled here and there. At first, it looks cool to be able to play as a lot of different characters, but everyone after Sonic just feels like they're just Diet Sonic or just not good in general. Something that is just as, if not more important than how the characters play, are the levels you play them in. The stages in Mario 64 are iconic and very well designed for the most part, and we see that before we even enter a stage. Mario jumps out of a pipe outside of the castle, and this is a perfect way to ease the player into the game. Remember, this is the first 3D Mario game of all time, the first 3D game of all time, so there are no enemies that can hurt you. It's a wide open space that you can learn in.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
So once you learn how to move around, you can enter Bob-omb Battlefield, and it's a great first level. Wide open spaces, every star feels unique and fun to get. One of Mario 64's biggest strengths is that if you're not having a fun time in a level, you can easily just jump into a different one. If you're struggling with the platforming in Lethal Lava Land, well, you can go to Shifting Sand Land instead. This is fantastic game design. It allows the player to ease themselves into the more difficult stages. Obviously, not every individual stage is perfect or even good sometimes, but overall, Mario 64 is very well thought out. Just about everything I said about Mario 64 can be thrown out and forgotten with Sonic Adventure. The very first time you control Sonic is in a boss fight. Now, I am a god gamer, and I was able to fully master Sonic's incredible, in-depth, and diverse moveset, so beating Chaos Zero wasn't an issue for me. But not everyone is as skilled as I am. Dropping the player in a boss fight from the get-go, it's just horrible. The player has no time to learn how Sonic plays. They could have easily had Sonic run through Station Square in a very short little area to get to Chaos, which would have helped you learn how he feels and test out the homing attack, but no, you're just thrown into the fight. Thankfully, the game gets better with the first level, Emerald Coast. This level is really good. I'm not even gonna lie there. It's well paced, has some cool visual moments, and I gotta say the water effects have aged really well. Remember, this game came out in 1998, and I gotta say this still looks good knowing that. Most of the Sonic action stages are alright, and when you know what you're doing, you can get through them pretty efficiently. I can't wait to see the cool and unique stages the other characters have. Look, when you're trying to make a game, you should try to reuse assets as best as you can. If you can save time by using a model a few extra times, then you can put that extra time and energy to areas that need it. Mario 64 has 15 stages and each have 5 unique stars to get, along with an 8 red coin and 100 regular coin star. You have to jump into each stage at least 6 times to get each star, assuming you're trying to get the 100 and the red coin star at the same time. But the levels have just enough going on to justify this gameplay loop. They're big enough and wide open enough to justify putting 6 stars in there. The action stages in Sonic Adventure just don't really warrant the replayability that they have. There are only 11 stages in the game, and most of the time, they stay the same when you're using a different character, or you only play a very small portion of the level. Most of Tails' stages have you race Sonic through the same levels you just played as Sonic. You're supposed to take as many shortcuts as possible, but that's just not satisfying, you know? You can only jump off the course and yeet yourself into the void so many times before it loses that effect, right? Before it loses the oomph of it. The levels get shorter and less interesting as the game goes on. The snowboarding section was cool the first time when I saw it, but seeing it again with Tails, it just doesn't have that same impact. Also, the boarding sections just aren't that good. The controls are way too slippery. I know I'm going all over the place with this section, but it's hard to talk about this. The game acts like you've got a lot of options to choose from with 6 different characters and 11 stages. But if you're sick of playing as Tails and try Knuckles' campaign, well, I hope you enjoy hearing this the whole time. In Mario 64, you can leave any course and come back to it later, but that's not the case with Sonic Adventure. If you stop playing Sonic's campaign and move on to Knuckles, odds are you're going to play the same stage you just tried to play with Sonic again, or a worse version of a different stage. If I had to sum up this section, it would be that Sonic Adventure 1 goes for a quantity over quality approach, but it just kind of fails at both, kind of like goes halfway between the two. The quality of the stages diminish the more you're forced to play them. Now, the Gamma stages, they feel pretty fun, but guess what? They're so short. You can beat them in like a minute and a half, and I know that sounds like, oh, it's a Sonic game. Of course you're supposed to beat them fast, but I just don't feel satisfied. I want to keep blasting all these bombs and stuff, but it just doesn't last as long as it should, in my opinion. You play 10 out of the 11 stages as Sonic, and the other characters have a total of 22 levels split between them. But as you go through each character's campaign, you play less and less of each stage until the point where you barely even explore the levels as Big the Cat. I can't believe the game calls the big levels action stages. I've been putting this off for a while, but Big the Cat is atrocious. Catching Froggy ranges from boring to tedious. I know everyone hates on the big stages, and obviously I'm just jumping on the bandwagon. But you wanna know why everyone hates this part of the game? Hey, maybe it just sucks. How about that? Something games rely on is replayability. Devs understand that if you're going to spend a large chunk of money on their game, it needs to be worth it. Nowadays, games can take upwards of 80 hours to beat. But that just wasn't always the case. Older games needed to give the player a reason to come back and play it again to justify the purchase. Mario 64 is so open-ended that you can play just about any stage in any order, and as you keep playing the game, you'll also get better at the star you're trying to focus on. The game does this so well that, in all honesty, it's very easy to just pick it up after a while. I was able to play the game off and on while working on this project because it's very easy to just hop back into, pick up the controller, jump into a painting, and, have fun. Sonic Adventure, on the other hand, isn't really like this. Now, to be clear, you are incentivized to replay the stages and get faster at beating them. But 1, most of the stages aren't too engaging on a 3rd or 4th playthrough, and 2, you're forced to watch the same handful of cutscenes again and again. The impact of the avalanche gets worse and worse each time you see it. Sonic Adventure relies heavily on spectacle. A lot of the game is watching stuff happen, but if you already know what's about to go down, how can you really care? Mario 64 has some moments like that too, but overall the spectacle of Mario 64 is getting better at the game. You can say that for Sonic as well, but there are only so many ways you can homing attack a spring, and there are only so many ways you can blow things up as Gamma.
Let's go!
One of my biggest issues with Sonic Adventure 1 is just how janky it is. This game shits itself so often that if I tried to go into every stupid thing that happened to me, we'd be here for even longer. But I'll talk about one specific bit that really sucked: the Egg Viper boss fight. Some of my deaths were caused by me not being patient enough or paying attention. I can admit that. Not every death was the game's fault. I won't pretend like I'm an expert at Sonic games, but look at this.
There's Sonic. Take this! No!
Why did my homing attack fail here? I waited for all the segments to get ready, and I've seen Sonic attack enemies from much further distances, but the game just decided, hey, my homing attack wouldn't work there. It's not only the homing attack that fails, but my basic jump attack screws up too. Fucking love this boss fight! Sonic Adventure, peak game! Obviously, I'm just dicking around. Obviously, I'm just not playing the game right. I'm not paying attention. I'm just being an idiot.
Get a load of this!
Give me any excuse you possibly can about how... Tell me how that was my fault! I immediately tested if attacking Eggman like this causes you to die, but no, you're supposed to be sent back to the platform. So why did this attack fail here? Okay, how about... let's test that.
You can make it through here.
Okay, look at that! I just jump in, I hit him! Yet, why does it bounce me onto the stage properly that time? Oh, you know what? Nah, I'm sure it's the emulator that I was playing on. That was the fault of it, yeah. Or you know what? No, I'm just bad at playing the Sonic game. Or maybe, guess what? The game is held together by duct tape, and sometimes it just shits itself. Not every death I had was caused by the game, but at the same time, some of my deaths were objectively not really my fault. I won't act like this happened all the time, but jank like this happened enough to annoy me. Now, what about Mario 64? It has a lot of jank too, right? The Mario 64 speedrunning community is one of the biggest reasons why the game is still played to this day. If you were to ask any random gamer what comes to mind when you say speedrun, they will most likely think of the backwards long jump, or BLJ for short. It's one of, if not the most iconic tricks in all of gaming. The BLJ is directly tied to the game's identity, but at the end of the day, it is a glitch, it is jank. The difference between Mario 64's jank and Sonic's jank is a matter of control. You control when you do these kind of glitches in Mario 64, but Sonic will just decide to shit itself. One moment you can run on this wall just fine, then the next you'll fall off. Mario 64 doesn't really have this issue. Most of the glitches have to be done intentionally by the player. There's a reason Mario 64 speedrunning videos get millions of views, but no one really cares about Speedrunning Adventure 1. First playthrough I did, I immediately did the MIPS clip and the BLJs to beat the game with only 18 stars. I watched enough speedrunning videos to do these glitches without practicing, and it was a ton of fun. Autism really is a force of nature. If you think I'm shitting on this game because I'm a die-hard Mario fan, well, I have news for you. Mario 64 is the first 3D Mario game I have ever played. I have played far more Sonic games than Mario games. I have not played Super Mario Odyssey, I have not played Mario Sunshine, Mario Galaxy 2, or like Super Mario 3D World. I've never played a 3D Mario game until for this video. But I have played 3D Sonic games. So if you're going to try to say my opinion is biased because I'm a Mario fan, guess what? I'm really not. I went into this video with far more experience with Sonic, but I finished this project enjoying Mario 64 way more than any of the 3D Sonic games I've played so far. Now allow me to bring up another argument. I am just a Sonic hater. Back in the 2010s, it was very popular to make videos bashing on the Sonic franchise. So obviously, I'm just jumping on that bandwagon, right? Well, let me ask this. At what point does it go from bandwagoning to just being right? If one person says you have a bad haircut, whatever. If 2 people say it, they're just haters. If 10 people say it, they're obviously just hating on it for the sake of hating on it. And if 100 people say it, well, they're just too stupid to understand why your haircut is actually great. Do people judge this game harshly because they're just hating on it for the sake of hating it, or are their opinions actually valid? I saw a funny interaction on Twitter. Some guy was talking about his experience playing Sonic Adventure 2, and he didn't really like it. He eventually let it slip that he got E and C ranks in his playthrough, and he got a lot of shit for it. But that begs the question, how skilled do you have to be at a game for your opinion to matter? Obviously, every person who has played a Sonic game and didn't like it was just bad at playing the game. I'd like to make a proposition. We need to come together as a community and make a set of guidelines to determine whether or not you are qualified to give your opinion on a Sonic game. Rule number 1, you must get a top 10 speedrunning time in the game you're trying to play. Rule number 2, you must 100% the game at least 5 times within the span of a year. Rule number 3, if the game you are playing has a rank system, you must achieve the best possible rank on all levels on 3 separate files. If you achieve all of those, then and only then will your opinion be regarded as something worthwhile. But if you still say you didn't enjoy playing the game, you obviously didn't play the game good enough. When can we accept someone's negative opinion without trying to say skill issue? Some people just don't like playing specific genres, and that's fine. Personally, I'm not all that into playing platforming games, but the few I've tried, I've beaten, like Hollow Knight. I'm more into fighting games, and if I heard someone complain about a specific character matchup, I would just be an asshole to disregard their thoughts with, well, you're still stuck in the silver rank, so you obviously know nothing at all. Maybe if you grinded up to the master rank, I would listen to your thoughts. If I legitimately tried to act like that, I would be ridiculed to hell and back. But that is what people did to this guy. They said that maybe if he tried to grind out for A ranks, he would have a lot more fun with the game. I want to go back to the question I asked at the beginning of the video. Why isn't Sonic Adventure looked on as fondly as Super Mario 64? Well, I have a very simple answer. Sonic Adventure just isn't as that fun as Mario 64. It's just not as good. Mario 64 is way more polished and thought out than Sonic, and understands what makes a game fun. Long cutscenes with horrible audio mixing is not that enjoyable to listen to. They put in so much effort to make Mario 64 good, and I just don't feel like that same level of care and polish was given to Sonic Adventure. Oh wait a minute, this whole time I've been bitching about Sonic Adventure, I forgot to bring up the Chow Garden! You know what? Never mind. Forget everything I said in this video. Every issue I had with the gameplay, the horrible audio, the lack of quality, the lack of care, the repetitive stages, the bad collision, etc. It does not matter, because guess what? The Chow, they're really cute. You know what? Fuck Mario 64. It's a trash game that's only carried by a boring speedrun. Mario 64, how about you BLJ your way out of this video? Because I gotta go pet me some Chow.